Well, morning to you. We are starting with the news that we now know one person has died and 33 have suffered serious injuries after two trains collided yesterday in the Bedford area.
Yes, a major incident has been declared with police, firefighters, ambulance crews and air ambulances all at the scene. Local hospitals have urged the public not to attend A&E unless they have a genuine emergency. Yeah, I mean, that number of people with perhaps slightly less serious injuries, though serious nonetheless, it's riding up to the sort of 90 sort of figure. It's a scary incident. Let's talk to travel correspondent for The Telegraph, Simon Calder, who joins us now. Morning, Simon. What more do we know at this stage?
As you say, good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Sophie. Terrible tragedy. We actually learned at about 11 o'clock last night that it was actually the train driver who died. The two unions, ASLEF, the Train Drivers Union, and the larger rail union, the RMT, both issued statements expressing their deep sorrow at the tragedy. And to talk through the sequence of events, there was a train coming down from Nottingham. We called it Leicester. It was a high-speed express train travelling generally at 125 miles an hour. It came to a halt a couple of miles south of Bedford, and there are reports that there was an issue with the automatic warning system that trains use to keep them safe, to warn drivers if there is a signal at danger. And whatever the cause, the train was stationary. The other train, which was the 440 from Corby, and the one on which I think most, if not all, of the terrible injuries you've been talking about occurred, was travelling south on the same line. It had stopped at Bedford. It had actually been passed by the first train. It then proceeded south and was on the same stretch of track. Normally, there would be a whole series of precautions to ensure that there is no possibility that the two trains could be in close proximity. They would normally be kept well apart by signalling and warning systems. Rail Accident Investigation Branch staff are on the site looking at what's happened, and they will be looking at everything from the carriages themselves, particularly the driving cab. They'll be looking at the track, looking at the signalling, and trying to work out what has gone wrong here. Meanwhile, as you say, almost 90 people being treated, some of them very seriously injured. And some of the accounts we have heard from people who were on the train from Corby, the one which ran into the back of the Nottingham train, absolutely devastating. So our thoughts are with those people.
Simon, of course, as you rightly say, there will now be a full investigation into this specific incident. But do you think this could potentially lead to considering safety across the board when it comes to our rail travel here in the UK? For example, people being able to stand up on trains. Do you think that that could lead to an investigation into that across the board?
That's a really good question to ask, Sophie. I mean, there have been various people suggesting, well, surely, we have seatbelts in cars, why not have them on trains? And I can explain why that almost certainly will not happen, and that is very simply because the standards of safety on British trains are extraordinarily high. This desperate tragedy involving a train driver and many injuries is just extremely rare. You might recall, well, certainly Stephen will, around the turn of the century, there was a series of absolutely terrible rail accidents, and there's been a great deal of learning from that, to the extent that the UK is now regarded as pretty much the safest in the world in terms of keeping passengers and crew safe. There are various technological systems, for instance, digital signalling, which could be used, but I think that kind of safety precaution would happen before we got to the situation where everybody had to sit down and maybe passengers were strapped in. It is simply not anything like the same order of magnitude. You are many hundreds of times more at risk if you're travelling in a car than on a train.
OK. Simon, look, it's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. It's hugely disturbing, though, isn't it? I mean,
terrifying. You just never know.
You don't know. It's absolutely shocking. We'll keep you up to date, of course, as that investigation into exactly what went wrong there continues.
Indeed.
Well, let's take you to the scene. Jack Carson is there for us. What do we know at this stage, Jack?
Well, good morning to you both. Well, what I can tell you is those investigations have continued at pace into the night. The commuter train involved in that collision has been removed, taken away from the scene, leaving only that high-speed train where one carriage looks to have come off of the tracks. That is the only train now left at the scene. The commuter train involved in this collision that happened yesterday has been taken away. It just shows you how quickly the investigations into this incident have continued into the night. We were on the scene yesterday witnessing the huge emergency response. East of England Ambulance Service deploying air ambulances, a hazardous response team, and all throughout the night that we were there, hours after the collision, ambulances on blue lights were still entering the scene. And we know now why, because in a later statement from the East of England Ambulance Service, we heard that 89 people had been injured. 11 of those described as having very serious injuries, 22 seriously injured, and 56 left with minor injuries. The two trains, of course, that collided were both East Midlands Railway services, one from Corby to London St Pancras and one from Nottingham to London St Pancras. And passengers on those trains described it as a sudden crash. That the front of the train seemed to be okay, but one of those was off the rails. That is the train that I was saying, that's the high-speed train that is still there as those investigations continue. We believe that one of the trains was stationary on the track when the crash occurred, with the collision happening at the rear of that train, and we heard from passengers how they were scared and confused exactly about what had happened. There was no warning that this collision was going to take place. People describing seeing smoke, people crying and screaming, people unable to get up, describing them as having both minor and major injuries. And those people have been taken to hospital, as you rightly say, the Luton and Dunstable University Hospitals Trust, both Bedford Hospital as well, also urging people to only go to accident and emergency if it was a genuine emergency, because on incidents like this that we saw last night, the huge emergency response of course took place. Just to say, overnight we did have word from the Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander, who confirmed that there would be a full investigation into this, and by evidence that we've seen overnight, that looks now to be taking place.
Jack, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know you'll be bringing us all the latest updates as they come in this morning.